Valravn is a new for 2016 dive coaster located at a place like no other, Cedar Point. With the park so famous and a coaster that hangs you at the top of a vertical drop, it's bound to draw a crowd. In this video, I'll be spotlighting the gimmicky coaster that is Valravn.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
In order to make way for this dive coaster, Cedar Point removed the Good Time Theater and Turnpike cars and relocated Dodgems and Calypso to the Wicked Twister Midway in late of 2014. In January of 2015, the Sandusky Register got a hold of a memo from B&M, the manufacturer of this ride, saying that a new record-breaking dive coaster will arrive at Cedar Point for the 2016 season. About a year before the ride opened, Cedar Point trademarked the name Valravn. Details of the coaster were officially announced on September 9th, 2015. It would break 10 records, including the tallest, fastest, and longest dive coaster in the world. The rest of the records aren't really relevant. Most of Valravn's records were broken in 2019 when YUKON Striker at Canada's Wonderland opened up as the fastest, longest, and longest drop on a dive coaster. But keep in mind the height record is tied, as both rides are 223 feet high. The ride opened on May 7th, 2016, and attendance skyrocketed. The ride consistently had long lines. This is B&M's 100th roller coaster, and it is the first B&M dive coaster to feature the controversial B&M vest restraints that are usually found on B&M wing coasters. Valravn doesn't have that much theming, but it is a very picturesque coaster. The pathways have beautiful planters, and there's this beautiful throne. Even without that much theming, Cedar Point did a great job with making this coaster look nice. The name itself, Valravn, is a weird name, mainly because there's no E where it's supposed to have one, so if you never heard of this coaster and you're just reading the name, you would probably have a hard time pronouncing it. That was what happened to me when I first heard of this ride. Colors are okay, they fit the theme. Fast forwarding to the station, this ride runs 3 trains, 3 rows, 8 seats per row for a total of 24 riders per train. This ride does have assigned seating from what I've heard, but since there's only 3 rows, I don't think there would be too much of a difference. The biggest difference in feeling is probably the drop. In the front you'll get a better throw from it, but in the back you'll get whipped down the drop. So I guess it's personal preference. Obviously I haven't ridden this yet. This ride does have the B&M vest restraints, but they are pretty controversial. They are comfy, but they restrict airtime, especially since this is a dive coaster. They also tighten on you and it apparently hurts, but YUKON Striker's vests are less restricting from what I've heard. Getting on the ride, you first take a turnaround which is very picturesque. Then you ascend your lift hill. You take a right turn, which I'm wondering why B&M does that on most of their dive coasters. You get a great view of Cedar Point as you hang over that holding brake. This is what the general public freaks out about. Then you drop down at a 90-degree angle. This ride has a drop height of 214 feet. Of course that drop is insane and probably one of the best, if not the best part of the ride. At the bottom of the drop you reach a maximum speed of 75 miles per hour. After that you take a 165 foot tall Immelman. I wouldn't expect a lot of force on it and hang time either since there's vest restraints. This inversion also used to be the second tallest inversion behind Gatekeeper's wing over drop in the same park. But Steel Curtain is opening up soon and it will break that record. Then you fly across the pathway and then go into the mid-course brake run. B&M somehow fitted the mid-course brake run in between the drop and some supports. But if that wasn't a challenge, I wish the mid-course brake run could be a little higher so that you're not losing as much momentum, because you really slowed down on this to almost a halt, but that builds up more suspense for the second drop on the ride. I bet in the back row that second drop is really good, but with the vests, I don't know about that. You drop and go into a dive loop. Looks like a pretty average dive loop. And then you go into a 270-degree roll. This inversion looks awesome. You go through it really slowly so you'll get a lot of hang time. Some people even say this is the best part of the ride. This is the third and final inversion, so this ride has a total of 3 inversions. You turn around and go into an airtime hill. Again with the vests, I don't know if you'll get that much airtime, and then you turn a little bit and go into the brakes, thus ending your ride on Valravn. In total this ride has a track length of 3,415 feet. This is the 3rd dive coaster in the US, with the other 2 being SHEIKRA and Griffin at Busch Gardens in Tampa and Williamsburg. Both SHEIKRA and Griffin have over-the-shoulder restraints instead of vest restraints, and they have splashdowns. Valravn has more elements to it, but I think a splashdown would have been good. YUKON Striker at Canada's Wonderland and Valkyria at Leesburg both do not have a splashdown and they have vest restraints, but from what I hear, both Valkyria and Yukon Striker have less restricting vests than Valravn. The general consensus is that Valravn is close to being the best dive coaster, but most people prefer Yukon Striker to it, and some even prefer Griffin and SHEIKRA to it. It's mostly due to Valravn having vest restraints and not having the most original layout. Most people would describe dive coasters as one-trick ponies, which is where the ride has one element it focuses on, but the rest of the ride isn't as good as that element. This ride's trick is the first drop, which has the holding brake. Another coaster type that I would consider are intimate accelerators. The launches, if they have a high acceleration, are really good, but the rest of the ride is a little mediocre. Mock Ride's launch coasters don't have good launches, but the layouts are very exciting. I do agree that Valravn and other dive coasters are one-trick ponies, but we shouldn't let that stereotype influence our thoughts on these rides. The B&M vest restraints on some rides apparently are not comfortable and they hurt, but I think these restraints are different for each person and for each ride that has them. I have not ridden a coaster that uses the B&M vest restraints, so I can't judge about them right now, similar to what I think about Skyrush's restraints. This ride, I hear from many people, is not very intense or forceful. I would still consider a ride to be forceful if it has enough force to impress me. I'd say Hang Time is pretty forceful at the bottom of the drop. But since Steel Vengeance, Maverick, Millennium Force, Top Thrill Dragster, and Raptor are in the same park, that might be why everyone is saying Valravn is not very forceful or intense. This ride isn't meant for enthusiasts who want to ride the most intense coaster in the world. It's meant to attract and thrill the general public. These are the rides that the general public really like. Rides that are tall, fast, and scary, but are not intense. It is better for a park to build a ride that pleases the general public so that the park's attendance boosts, and for the park to make money to build more coasters and attractions. So while this ride is nowhere near the best coaster in the world, it was a big success and helped Cedar Point to make a lot of money to build quite possibly the best coaster in the world. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, then please leave a like. I really appreciate it. Let me know down in the comments, what are your thoughts on Valravn? What do you like or don't like the most about the ride? Leave all of that down below. If you're new to this channel and roller coasters are what you're into, then please consider subscribing for content all about roller coasters. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.